Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to explain the quote-unquote big ideas of the test creation process using the selected response test rubric and some good and not so good exemplars. You should read Chapuis and Stiggins 2020 chapter 5 and Popham 2017 chapter 6 to get the why and the how we use these tests. I'm not going to go into that in this video. The first part of the assignment you should already done and receive feedback from me and your peers, and that is creating your 4 learning targets along with a testing blueprint showing a visual of your targets and the question types aligned with them. You should start your test by making a place for the candidate's name, date, and final score. You should follow that up with your targets, number of questions, and total points in parentheses, and code them, LT1, LT2, etc. As I mentioned in many of your targets, preface them with using the EdTPA of your choice, special ed, early education, elementary literacy, assessment handbook, candidates will able to. And I believe in the exemplar I'm going to show you, the person didn't do that. You can see that the candidate will, the candidate will, the candidate will. So that's just extra verbiage. You don't need that. So make sure you have a place for a name. There should be an answer blank here so the person can write their name in there. But make sure you begin with a name, date, and so you can put the score down. There are your targets with 6 questions, 18 points. You don't need this total here. Just put 6 questions, 18 points, then the LT1 in parentheses. Okay, so that's how you should start your test off. Each section of different question types needs instructions. So you have to make them concise and only highlight keywords with all caps. No boldface or italics. Your font should be consistent throughout the test. And you'll see on this exemplar test that they boldfaced part 2, they boldfaced directions. Don't need to do that. I mean, it's okay to boldface the parts. I don't know why this is considered part 2. It should be part 1. But you can see you don't need the directions to be bold-faced. We don't use bold-faced or italics like down here for this question, deepening student learning. You shouldn't do that. I mean, that draws the student's attention to it, and it's puzzling. Okay, why is that italicized? Both here should not be italicized. Only capitals. So when you want to highlight a word like not, both, capitalize it. The format of the test is so important. If it's confusing to you or your classmates, your students will be confused as well. I'm going to use the rubric to explain how your test should look. I made a separate video to assist you in creating the matching section. This one will be a little bit longer. This video will guide you in formatting the rest of the test. First, I will talk about general formatting. As I mentioned earlier, you must be able to tell which questions are aligned with which target. Again, I'll go back to the exemplar, and you can see that this person has organized it by question type, but has used all of these questions to assess mastery of LT2. I don't recommend that. I've mentioned it before. You know, you can code your questions by putting in parentheses at the end of the question LT1, LT2, LT3, LT4. But you need to know if the student is struggling with the question type or the content. And you won't know that if all your questions, you can see LT3 are all fill-ins, LT4 are all multiple choice. And that could be problematic. And part 4, it's all matching. And the all matching part is okay because I'm always telling people to use, or telling my students to use the matching for all the same type of questions or terms. That's why it's a great match for vocabulary. You also have to have a minimum of 6 matching questions. Some of you had 5, some of you had 3, one person had none. you're going to lose points in the rubric if you don't have a minimum of 6 matching. And 3 of the other types. You probably have more of the other types, but 3 is a minimum. You also need at least 4 reasoning questions. The easiest way to create a reasoning question is to create a teaching, planning, or assessment scenario and ask candidates to use the rubric to evaluate the process. There are many other ways you can do this based on the 2 texts I just mentioned above. Chapuis and Stiglitz, Chapter 5, the Brookhart article on multiple choice. One thing to avoid is creating a scenario and using the exact language of the rubric. I want you to take a notice of this exemplar. I'm going to scroll down to the first question. That the person writes that Mr. Harper is able to provide evidence from this lesson of the student's use of the language function and vocabulary. That's right from the rubric. That's the language of the rubric. He is unable to notice and provide evidence of other language demands. Okay, what does that mean? How does he do that? You have to describe what he does that doesn't provide evidence of other language demands. You have to describe what he does to provide evidence of the language function in the vocabulary. By the way, language function is a great vocabulary word. I didn't really know what the EdTPA meant by it until I was trained to be an evaluator, and I had to find out what the heck is a language function. So it's kind of easy what it is, but they had to put it in fancy terms. So keep that in mind, because it won't count as a reasoning question. All one of your classmates has to do is go in, look at the rubric. Oh, yep, you said that. You said that. Oh, didn't say this. Avoid that, please. One of the biggest issues my students have had in the past is using the numbering function in the home menu to create hang indents for all questions and answer choices. In this example, I will show you how to do that. Write out your questions. Okay, I'm going to take away all the, I recommend writing out your questions first without the answers. So this true false, you would eliminate these true false, because I'll show you what happens when I start to number this. Okay, I'm going to highlight all these questions, and I'm going to go into the numbering function in the home menu. That's right over here, and I'm going to click on the number. Okay, so you can see what happens. It's numbered everything that is indented. So it's easy to get rid of those. Just hit return, 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 and you'll see that it's numbered the questions 2 through 6. One of the things you need to do is number your questions consecutively. So question 6 is in the matching. So what I'm going to do now is go back into the home menu. I'm going to hit the drop down menu next to the numbering function, and I'm going to go down to set numbering value, and I'm going to set it to 7. And you'll probably have to do this often. And you can see now they're numbered consecutively. So and it also creates a hanging indent, so the numbers stand out and the question is separate, which makes it very clear and easier to read. Okay. So other general formatting ideas include having your questions and answers on the same page. You don't have your question, especially matching. Matching, if you don't organize it right, some of the answers run on to the next page. You don't want students having if it's a paper test, they're going to have to flip back and forth to read it, and that's a nuisance. It takes time. So your question and the answers should need to be on the same page. Other formatting guidelines are consistent spacing. Let's take a look at this exemplar and check the spacing out. You can see that this person has the directions. They've also divided it by learning target. All question types, one learning target. I don't recommend that, like I said, but it's up to you. These directions in the first question should be on the same page. And yeah, you can see that's what this person has done. You should try to eliminate large white space. The less paper used, the better. So if you can start a question on the previous page without it running over onto the next page, please do it. Okay, here are some specific guidelines for each question type. For multiple choice questions, as I said, question and answers need to be on the same page. Your instructions for the section and the first question should also be on the same page, as I just pointed out. Your stem must be in the form of a question. So other guidelines say you can just leave something blank at the end. I want you to, in this exercise, I want you to make all your multiple choice questions in the form of a question. That's easily done. You should have at least 4 answer choices, and they should be aligned with the hanging indent of the questions. And again, I will use this exemplar to show you how that is done. And it can be tricky because I'm going to go into the home menu and okay, there they are. Now I'm going to go into the home menu and I'm going to select the drop down menu, and this time I'm going to select A, B, C. Now I prefer if the answers are aligned with the question indent. You may not know how to do that. Again, I explained this in the matching video. Is you go up into the ruler up here and you take and you drag it over. So there they are. Some people put a space between the question and I'm just going to hit return. That 12 will go away. And you can do that. This looks okay because the questions are indented to align with the hanging indent, but I think a little space looks better. Here are, you should use uppercase letters without parentheses for your answer choices. Uppercase letters are much easily distinguishable, and especially for younger students. If they haven't quite learned the lowercase a from a large case A, they may have a problem with it, but it's a consistent format that you should use. These guidelines are from Popham. The stem should consist of a self-contained question, okay, or problem, but I want you to do a question. Avoid negatively stated stems. Those are too confusing. Do not let the length of alternatives supply intended clues. There's 4 short answers and then 1 long one. It says, oh, that's got to be the right answer. Never use all of the above. That's part of the rubric. And I explained to some people why that is, because all you have to do is pick one, find one that isn't, and now you know the answer, all of the above. You can eliminate that as well. So you've already eliminated half your choices if you only have 4. But do use none of the above. So you can use none of the above as an alternative to increase the difficulty. Matching questions, I shared a video about formatting the matching. Make sure there are hanging indents in both the questions and the answer choices. Your answer blanks should be aligned. I'll go into this exemplar and we'll check that out. I think this person has it in the beginning. I would recommend putting it at the beginning or the end because typically it's going to take a whole page. You also should have at least 1 more answer choice than questions to avoid the process of elimination. So that's a big thing. Many people have 6 questions, 6 answers. 7 or 8 would be much better. True-false questions. The words true and false should be written out so the test taker can easily answer by circling the best choice. You can place them at the end, but I would recommend, as this person has done, is to put them underneath and make sure they're spaced far enough apart so a person has ease of answering. You really want to make it easy to answer all the questions. So circle either true or false. Notice the directions, very concise for each question. Circle either true or false. Get rid of these bold faces. You do not need them. It's only confusing. Don't use negative statements and never use double negatives. Talk about confusing. Include only one concept in each statement. I've seen students write true false where they have one statement and then another statement. Don't do that. You just want to focus on one concept at a time. Fill in the blank questions. Blanks should be all the same length. I believe this person has done that. Okay, you'll notice that when the fill in the blanks are all either at the end of the sentence or they're near the end of the sentence, and that's what the guidelines say. Notice the answer blanks are all the same size. Even if the answer is a number, make the answer blanks all the same size. You don't want that to be a clue to answering the question. Also, make sure you use, I don't know if this person has done that, but use A or A parentheses N, so you're not giving away the, if it starts with a consonant or a vowel. That's another clue that we don't want to give. Also, there is no word bank. I've seen people mention word banks in the learning target discussion. There are no word banks in selected response tests. That can be something you can do for a short formative assessment. You just want to see if students can select the right word. A matching is like having a word bank, you know, except the words are the questions and the word bank are the answers. So, no word bank. If you need to use one word, if it is impossible to avoid, 2 words is okay to assess mastery. Just place after the blank parentheses 2 words. So there's no confusion. These are some item writings from Clay, Is This a Trick Question?, which is in the Selected Response Test materials. Omit only significant words. This should be a no-brainer. You're not going to omit a the or some other insignificant word. Avoid obvious clues, of course. Be sure there is only one correct response. Avoid grammatical clues, which I just mentioned. Use A apostrophe N, so they don't know if it begins with a consonant or a vowel. Place blanks at or near the end of the sentence. This is in the rubric. And you can find this on page 36 through 37 in Clay's book. So that's it for formatting the test. Hopefully this helps you out. It'll only help you out if you watch it. So I look forward to giving you feedback on your first drafts.